The real mover is going to be silver when this finally breaks. Just compare it to anything. It is irrationally undervalued. China has a huge stockpiles of silver. I think Russia has huge stockpiles of silver. So when demand does increase, it won't be a matter of, okay, it's time to buy silver. There won't be any to buy. As far as a retail investor, it's going to become extinct.
Ian Everard, great to have you back on Commodity Culture. I'd love to start with your thoughts on the silver market right now, because I recently had Michael Oliver and David Hunter on the show. They both pointed to a $1,000 silver price. Now, just to be clear, Michael said it wouldn't shock him. He didn't call for it, but he said within a year, and he believes silver is going much higher than 300 in that time frame. David Hunter, a bit of a different forecast. He sees silver going to $200 this cycle, a global bust, followed by silver eventually going to $1,000 an ounce in the early 2030s. I'd love to get your thoughts on both of those forecasts and just your overall thoughts on the silver market as we sit here today, potentially heading back towards $70.
Okay, that's a lot to chew on. Now, I like Michael Oliver. I think his way of studying the momentum instead of the traditional chartists is interesting and quite often correct. But isn't the big question, what relevance does it have to a stacker? I guess it has relevance if you're thinking of buying. It's good to think, oh, wow, my $70 silver is going to go to $1,000. But I think it's the wrong question for a stacker is, do you believe the current system is stable, controllable, and is just going to carry on chugging along, allowing us to do what we did yesterday, last week? Now, if you think that, then yes, these forecast predictions are important because you're presuming that you can buy silver tomorrow or next week or next month if it hasn't gone to $200 or $1,000. But that's a big presumption because I think I mentioned several times before on the program, I am convinced we're heading for full financial control and financial repression with a fully digital system. We're getting more and more mention of tokenization and the Clarity Act about everything getting tokenized. Even I saw an article today about some company pushing tokenized assets into a fund. What does that mean? It means that everything is recorded and linked to the dollar, and everything is then in an account. If we go fully digital, and I'm convinced we're going to, you won't have a choice how you can spend what's in your account. So sort of circling back to these forecasts for the silver price, I think it's the wrong question. The question is, will I be able to buy it tomorrow, next week, next month? Will I be able to use what is in my digital account, how I want to, where and when I want to? So, I have to give respect to Michael Oliver and David Hunter. They're a million times more known than I am, but I think they're asking the wrong question.
You mentioned tokenization. I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into that because we've also heard talks that there's potential consideration of tokenizing the whole stock market and putting it on a 24/7 or at least one of the exchanges, like either the NASDAQ or one of those exchanges, and allowing 24/7 trading of tokenized securities. This seems like a disastrous idea, and this whole push for tokenization of assets seems like a disastrous idea overall. Where is this all headed? Because you alluded to capital controls, both of how we spend our own money, perhaps capital controls in terms of stopping money from leaving the country. Where do you see this all headed ultimately?
So we have a choice. We really are at a crossroads. We can either, well, we're going to carry on debasing. And that's the route. That is inflation, the abnormal increase in the monetary supply. I think the figures were for July, nearly $500 billion deficit in 1 month. So this administration gets the record, I think. I mean, maybe we did more on COVID. So we can carry on debasing. We have to carry on debasing or the system will collapse. So how can you delay the collapse? Well, you can control the velocity. because that gives the outworking, that's the reckoning, that's the accounting when people try and spend all this extra currency. It's a simple big picture, but the details can be quite complicated. I mean, you got this bizarre way of measuring money in the United States: M1, M2, and M3. M3, the Federal Reserve stopped reporting in 2006. So 20 years ago, they decided we shouldn't know what the broadest measure of money currency is. Well, there's a reason, isn't there? They're making more than they're owning up to. So there's even more currency is being created, one in the US and two in the euro dollar, i.e. dollars created outside of the US. So this is why we have to go to a fully controlled system to delay the collapse by controlling velocity. Because number one, when we go fully digital, they can control how much currency goes into the new system. And then when it's in the new system, they can control how, when, and if it can be used. What that will do, that will destroy economic, it will destroy GDP, because what small business will invest and, to get a gain in the future, if the system is telling them you won't have free will how to use that gain. You might make it and it's digitally in your account, but you can't say, do you know what? I want to retire. I want to go to Puerto Rico. I want to move to Spain. I'm out, and you won't be able to transfer it. So who is going to invest effort and toil and energy? So this new system, the timer, the fuse will be lit as soon as it comes in, an even faster approach to the catastrophic collapse. That I'm convinced that is how this system ends.
Well, I think one of the signs that we're getting into the danger zone is Scott Bessent announcing yesterday that they would be doubling treasury buybacks. This is essentially looking like Bank of Japan style yield curve control. Gold, silver, and the miners went ballistic in the aftermath. Some of the miners going up 10% or more. Gold and silver themselves rising considerably on the news. What are your thoughts on this announcement, and what are the precious metals markets sniffing out based on what Scott Bessent has proposed here?
So gold and silver historically always have, and in my understanding and studying and opinion, always will give a thorough accounting of the currency debasement. They haven't done it yet. So this is a step, isn't it, to purchase long dated, so 10, 20, 30-year debt, and issue shorter term duration. So obviously the demand isn't out there for long term. So, I mean, we had it, didn't we? Was it called TARP, Temporary Asset Repurchase Program, to bail out the banks who are holding notes that the principal was underwater, because as rates rise, the value of debt issued at a lower interest rate has a lower principal value. So it's a bailout of the banking system. It's going to be the first of many. It's interesting, they seem to change the name each time. I mean, you go back 3-4 years, I think we had about 12 different 3 or 4 letter acronyms to describe, just to try and disguise what was going on. We've got the issue now, haven't we, with the AI system demanding trillions of dollars. I think 0.7 trillion, 0.8 trillion has been spent this year in the US. And you've now got some of the, I can't remember the company, but one of the technology companies said, we need 100 times the current computing power. So they want to spend 100 trillion. So now you've got AI competing, trying to tap foreign investment funds, family offices. You've got Google. I think they've just raised some cash in Australia. There seems to be a desperate clamor, and the cost of money, i.e. what people are prepared to give out their capital, what return they want, is rising worldwide for whatever the purpose. So yeah, it's symptomatic of a panic that you can't just sell any date US debt now. The market is getting picky, and it wants shorter and shorter duration.
The sponsor of today's episode is ARC Silver Gold Osmium. Owner Ian Everard is praised even by his competitors as one of the most honest and level-headed bullion dealers in the United States. They have some great prices. You can see some of them displayed right now on screen. Take advantage of these specials today by reaching out to Ian at 307-264-9441 or by email at ian@arcsgo.com. Make sure to tell them, of course, that Commodity Culture sent you. And now, back to the interview. Yeah, and even before this announcement, we saw gold and silver start to break out because post-war in Iran kicking off, of course, we know after all-time highs, things corrected considerably, but we've seen the metals basically drop and be in a sideways consolidation for the duration of the war. And we're now seeing the metals break out. Obviously, Besson's announcement helped push them, but they were kind of already on that trajectory. Do you think the next leg could now be fully underway in this precious metals bull market? And if so, could this be one of the last chances to buy gold and silver at discount?
I think it could be one of the last chances to buy, particularly silver. It's so key and it's such a finite market. So going back to the war, is it a war? It's on, it's off, memorandums of understanding, complied with, not complied with, a threat of total destruction of Iran as a civilization. Now in that whole world, we've got Pakistan, Turkey, and Saudi with a pact, with a NATO equivalent-like pact of mutual, Pakistan, nuclear weapons. They've just managed to, last year, 12-day war of India. India looks like backed off. They had some of their fighter jets shot down by Pakistan. This is complex picture. So I'm trying not to pour too much information out so we can get some. So traditionally, outbreak of war, quite often metals will fall. And then when people realize this is a permanent situation, then it's a flight to safety. Because particularly gold can be a fear and a greed trade. I think it could become both. Now, silver, which is obviously, we started our company focusing on the silver. It's just such a tiny market. And please forgive me if you're fed up with people saying it's such a tiny market. Even the most optimistic estimates of above ground refined silver that could enter the market from the CPM group is 10 billion ounces. Well, multiply that by $70, that's $0.7 trillion. So that's less than 2 months of the current US deficit burn rate. It's less than 6 months of our interest bill. Just compare the current valuation of silver to financial assets, whether it's interest, whether it's debt, whether it's deficit, whatever it is, whether it's the value of SpaceX, just compare it to anything. It is irrationally undervalued. So when demand does increase, it won't be a matter of, okay, it's time to buy silver. There won't be any to buy. The big fish would have got in there first. The family offices, sovereign nations. Do you think China isn't stockpiling silver? It's like, so what do we? So we're saying there's $0.7 trillion of potential silver throughout all human history that could be available. That's less than US debt that China holds. So if China said, you know what, we're going to swap out of US debt into silver, that would mean then purchasing at the current price all the silver that it remains above ground. Well, where does the manufacturing silver come from then? So. And then people often use the argument, well, China doesn't want a high silver price. China doesn't care what the silver price is as long as they've got control of the silver market. So I think it might have been 2 years ago I said on this show, gold is a distraction.
Yeah.
It is a distraction compared to silver. Yes, we should be concentrating on gold. I mean, the history of the Spanish doubloon, and value of gold nuggets have been valued throughout history. But the real mover is going to be silver when this finally breaks. And it will be too late to buy. You'll ring up, you'll go online, and there won't be anything to buy.
Well, I want to stay on China there. I want to talk about their role in the gold market. Perhaps we could talk a little bit about silver as well. But I want to read a quote from the chairman of the Shanghai Gold Exchange. Back in 2014, you sent me this quote, and I think it's very interesting. He said, Shanghai Gold will change the current gold market with its consumed in the East but priced in the West arrangement. When China has the right to speak in the international gold market, the true price of gold will be revealed. Now, there's been a lot of developments when it comes to China and both the gold and silver markets. I'd love to get your thoughts on this quote and whether you think we're getting nearer to it becoming reality.
I saw that on another program, and a few people have touched on it, but we need to zoom in on this. What is it? It's pretty simple. What it's saying, isn't it? When China has the right to speak, i.e., when China has the power, i.e., when they can command, the true price of gold will be revealed. This was 12 years ago. I mean, how much gold has China accumulated in 12 years? I mean, they mined 400 tons internally, minimum. So they've kept all of that. So that's nearly 5,000 tons. They've probably been buying way more than they've shown on the charts. They're probably buying through third parties, proxies, you know. They've been buying concentrate and doré from gold and silver mines. So they've probably got a huge stockpile of unrefined product. I think we're close, but will it be a dramatic? China announces tomorrow morning gold is $10,000. We will buy gold at $10,000. That's the new minimum price. No, they'll just let it keep rising because China doesn't have to do anything dramatic now. The West, and particularly the US, has got so good at unforced errors. Day after day after day, we do something so absolutely stupid to drive countries into the arms of China, to reinforce the BRICS need to have an alternative currency from the dollar. And they've chosen gold. Now, out silver, they are joined at the hip. Yes, it's an elastic join, but it will never separate. And silver now has got this growing industrial consumption role. You know, China is not stopping its solar rush for solar, nor India, nor is almost all of the world apart from the US is going for solar. You know, I bought 4 pallets. I bought 144 solar panels. They cost me $14,000 delivered from China. That's the rest of my energy for the rest of my life, for travel, for transport, for heating, for growing, you name it, for light. Heck, I can even have heated driveways and that much. Well, if I can work it out, countries and businesses are going to work it out. Do you know what? Let's just put the money up now and we'll have our energy for the next 20, 30 years. Done. We know what the price is now. Whereas if you're relying on diesel, I mean, heck, was it diesel? It's now all-time high, $100 over a barrel of oil for a barrel of diesel now. Typically, it's $20. That's not coming down. One, you know, even with demand destruction, with the real economy is probably shrinking. A lot of countries, it's been masked by real inflation because we measure GDP in nominal terms. They don't report GDP. Oh yeah, our GDP was 2.8%, but our inflation was 10%. So therefore, our economy has shrunk by 7.2%. So the demands on silver, just for creating energy, are just going to keep on growing. This is why it's going to, as far as a retail investor, it's going to become extinct. There won't be any to buy.
Well, you mentioned China potentially understating the gold and silver it's been accumulating. You know, the number 1 gold producer in the world, by the way, the number 2 silver producer in the world is China. On the other hand, we've spoken about this before, speculation that the United States is does not have the gold that they claim to have. And we recently saw the latest dog and pony show, in my opinion, which was Rand Paul walking around Fort Knox for a couple hours, coming out and saying, don't worry, guys, we're all good here. All the gold's still there. And then he started talking about something to do with currency debasement and try to sound like, thank God we have our gold. And it's, yeah, what are your thoughts there? This seems like fugazi.
I've had the pleasure of meeting Rand Paul's dad a couple of times, Ron Paul. Now, it must be hard for a father to be ashamed of their son's ignorance and what's the word? Just being a puppet. I mean, it's just an embarrassment. The details I've read to audit the gold, you'd need a team of 10 or 20 people for like 6 months, go through bar by bar. You'd weigh it, you'd XRF it, you'd scan it, you'd assay it, you'd probably acid test it, you would stamp it, restamp it, and then move it to another shelf. And then you'd have to work through. And you'd have to simultaneously do it at Fort Knox, where I think half the gold is, West Point. There's probably some in the Denver Mint, San Francisco. We've probably got some hidden in wherever that secret military base is, you know. We've probably got it scattered around. We've probably got too much gold. But the arrogance to say, yeah, we can just look, yeah, it's all there. It's just ridiculous. Rand Paul, if you ever get to see this, you should be ashamed of that. That's just a joke. The truth is we've probably got more gold than we should have, and we'd have to explain where and when we stole it. That's probably the real, you know, all the wars we've been involved in, well, started or been dragged into or whatever, the gold has disappeared. And who's had the means, motive, and opportunity? That's just, you know, we have. So we've probably got way more, but we probably haven't got anywhere near as much as China, you know. And again, I mentioned unforced errors. Why is the United States one of its largest, if not our largest export gold? $13 billion of gold in July, I think it was. Why don't we just type some funny money and buy gold? Why are we exporting it? It's like, we can get gold for free as a nation. By stealing from all existing dollars. But looking at it cynically, when we steal from dollars by debasing, we debase all the dollars outside of the US that at any point in time we can cut off from being able to be used in the US. So we still have the exorbitant privilege as a nation of being able to rob the rest of the world and default on the debt by not allowing this funny money to be used in the US. I think we've gone a little bit off track there, but definitely China has a huge stockpiles of silver. I think Russia has huge stockpiles of silver. My clients have huge stockpiles of silver. David Bateman in Utah has billions of dollars of silver. You know, people have woken up and are making their positions.
Now, what do you say to the counter argument around the Fort Knox debacle? People like Brent Johnson, who I think is a very smart guy, but in this case, I disagree with him. He said, well, hey guys, what's up? Why do you trust China and Russia? Or let's talk about China specifically here, because that's the one that people usually point to. Why do you think China has all this gold, even though they're not officially auditing their reserves and showing us, yet you won't trust that the United States has the gold? What's going on? I mean, to me, this seems a little ridiculous on its face, because Rand Paul went in there and said it's all good. So the burden of proof is kind of on him. So I don't get this argument. But what are your thoughts there? Should we trust that China has as much gold as they say they do? Speculation is it's more. What do you make of that argument?
So the answer to that is history. He who has the gold makes the rules. That's what it will come down to. He who has the gold will make the rules. You can carry on this fiat Ponzi scheme worldwide until you can't, until it explodes, and it will explode. China knows this. China considers centuries, if not millennia, of history. It remembers the Opium Wars, where the West stole silver from China by getting them addicted to opioids, stole the silver back that they'd earned honestly by making goods. And at the moment, history is repeating in that China is a highly successful manufacturer. I mean, was it 30% of all goods manufactured in the world are manufactured in China? 30%. And that's probably only going to increase as they increase robotics and they use AI to increase, they're going to need less and less labor and be making more and more products. They've run the race to scale. This is where you can be unassaultable. I mean, you have one city, they will make a city of 1 million people, all they make is toilets. You have another city of 2 million people, all they make is faucets. That's it. So you've got that concentration of specialization where you can reduce the cost. Time and motion is refined to the most efficient you can ever get. So even you could move to a country, Mexico, Vietnam, Malaysia, and have cheaper labor. They can't get that efficiency of scale. So China have got a stranglehold on manufacturing. Because of that, they need silver. They do not want to run out of silver. So that's why they have stockpiled probably a decade's worth of silver for their manufacturing. Because it won't matter what the price of silver is. If they're the only country that have got it, they'll set the price of the goods. Because nobody else, their competitors who've got all the sunk costs, the factories, the labor, the export, the products, the intellectual property, that will all be useless if they haven't got silver to make their products. So China could go from 30% to 60% almost overnight if they're in a position to control silver because they have the largest reserves. So when the rest of the world is panicking and you get retail people panicking into silver, buying up silver, China will be laughing because they know that's less silver that the West will have to manufacture goods with. And what are we going to do? Open up a silver mine in 15 years' time? You know, it's like, so they understand these things. They have whole teams studying every aspect of everything. You know, that I am sure. They have the luxury of a command economy where the Z can say, do this, and it gets done. There's no constraint. Here, it's, will it make me money in next week? Or will it make me money in 3 months' time? If it doesn't, I'm not doing it. You know, it's like, so we've become lazy and greedy, and China has just been plugging away, and all they have to do is just keep watching us make unforced errors. I mean, getting dragged into a forever war, stirring up that whole the Muslim, the Sunni thing, that, you know, what if we provoke the Muslim world to unite? Now they've got nuclear bombs. You know, what if they just say, hang on, guys, yeah, we could sacrifice your side of our religion, and, you know, but, oh, by the way, we've been lied to. The US couldn't protect our bases. They couldn't, you know, they're going to send the last Patriot missile to Israel to protect Israel, you know. I mean, heck, I'll probably get a call from APAC if AI is monitoring this, you know. But, you know, come and visit me, guys. We'll have a sensible discussion. And if you want to talk Bible, we'll talk Old Testament, you know. But anyway, China is in control. I'm sure it has huge stockpiles of silver. And that will be the metal that will be really, really, really key in who wins the economic race. Or the economic war, really, because, you know, we are in full-on commodity wars.
Yeah, some great thoughts. And I mean, on the China being a manufacturer and dominating that industry, they're making really good products these days too. Things have changed. It's no longer these, of course, they still make flimsy, cheap products in these factories. Those exist, but their cars, some of the best electric cars out there. I mean, I've got a Xiaomi phone. It's amazing. Air purifiers, all of these different types of products, home appliances are actually pretty high quality. So they've upped their game at this point. I want to ask you about rhenium at this point in time, because this is a very, you talk about silver being a small market. Rhenium is a market that most people aren't even aware exists right now. Why don't you walk us through the latest data in that market? And for those who aren't familiar, maybe lay out why it's such a critical metal and the opportunity in that metal.
Yeah, sure. So rhenium, 75 on the periodic table, sits between tungsten and osmium. So it's a transition metal. It has all the properties and in some ways superior properties to the so-called precious metals. The big difference is only 50 tons is produced of fresh rhenium a year, and it's a byproduct of a byproduct. So that's where it is really nice. There are no rhenium mines. It's found at such low concentrations, there probably never will be any rhenium mines. It should never really have found any mass industrial uses because the supply is so constrained. But it has. It's essential for making jet turbine blades and combustion chambers. That's where 75, 80% rhenium goes to make the modern jet engine. And not just recently, for 40 years. And for nearly 40 years, the industry has been seeking an alternative. It cannot find one. it leans down, but it finds the efficiency of the engine drops, so it increases back up. And now we have such a surge in aviation. Just Boeing has nearly 7,000 airframe backlog on its order books. The average civilian airframe needs 50 kilograms times 7,000. That's 350 tons Boeing needs alone against a fresh production of 50 tons a year. Yes, there's recycling. When you retire a jet engine, yeah, you can extract that rhenium out. But there's a lag, because when you build an engine, that rhenium is in that engine for 10 years before that engine gets refurbished, stripped down, and rebuilt. So we are entering a crunch where some planes will not get built because there isn't any rhenium. That's going to happen. At the moment, it's trading around 7,000 a kilo. I'm predicting 70,000 a kilo. And even then, I don't think the price will really slow down moving, because it will be a bidding war between who can raise enough currency to purchase it. That will be, you know, and whether the US will be able to use its military might to force Chile to send all the rhenium here, maybe, because that's where half of the rhenium comes from, is from Chile. So now we have a supply risk. I mean, Chile is known for earthquakes. One earthquake, we lose half of the world's fresh rhenium. So now we're down to 25 tons a year against Boeing needing 350 tons. The market is absolutely incredible. The dynamics, study it. I've challenged people, prove me wrong. I've been saying this since September 2024. Nobody has proven me wrong. My suppliers, producers, refiners, users. I even challenged Rolls-Royce at a conference. I met the team from Rolls-Royce and I challenged them. I told them, you go back to crew, you go back to England, tell your bosses to start stockpiling rhenium, because if you don't, you won't be building engines. They didn't laugh at me. And what did I find out 2 weeks later? Rolls-Royce started stockpiling. It's a tiny world. There's about 9 to 12 people pretty well control over 90% of the world's rhenium supply. So if you get into that world and you talk to these players, you can find out that the whole picture. It's also fascinating. This is a piece in its pure wrought form. You see, it's pretty flexible. It's malleable, but it has a hardness, I think 55 on the MOHS scale. It will shine up to a beautiful blue. I don't know if the light will catch it here. This has just been rolled. So we're actually in the process of making, I think, the world's first rhenium and crystalline osmium watch face. So when it gets introduced as a luxury metal, now is going to get bid up to the price of gold. So that could be the ceiling. Also, interestingly, medically, it's been around as a medical alloy since 2019, the first FDIC approval. Boston Scientific, and you can look this article up, have just spent $1.5 billion buying the rights to a molybdenum rhenium-based heart valve. $1.5 billion for one medical use, because as a medical alloy, it doesn't break, it doesn't wear out, it has no nickel in it. So another 20% of the population who has nickel allergies can use it. So the medical use is just about to actually take off. And that has no price ceiling, because a heart valve might use a gram. So that might use $7 of rhenium at the current price. But you're talking $100,000 operation or $150,000, or saving somebody's life, because these valves can be made smaller and more durable because of the properties of the rhenium-based alloy. So yeah, I am really excited. Full disclosure, we took a large position as soon as I found out in September 2023. We've been increasing our position. So absolutely full disclosure. I don't even buy an ice cream cone now, because I will save that $5 and I'll buy $5 more rhenium. It's like, this is the one slice of cake you get in your lifetime. Like Warren Buffett once said, once in a lifetime you get offered a slice of cake, you take it. You know, so it is an absolutely exciting market. It's a privilege to be involved in it. We've made a lot of people very rich already.
Yeah, and Arc Silver Gold Osmium, one of the few dealers that actually sells physical rhenium. Why don't you tell us about that and just give us an overview of Arc SGO and the type of services and products that you offer?
So yeah, we are still, and hopefully, as long as the government allow, your full silver dealer, both buying, selling, advising. We will give our best opinion and advice, to what product you should buy or what product you should swap into. Just talking to an elderly gentleman this morning who's scared that his heirs will have no idea what to do with his silver and they'll sell it off too cheap. So we can help. We can help advise, maybe even educate your heirs, because some people are coming to me. I want to sell. I want to turn it into dollars because my children are stupid. My nephews and nieces are stupid. They'll just take it to a pawn shop and sell it for half its value. I want to turn it into dollars now. Well, we can help in that situation. Well, let's educate your heirs. Let's maybe appoint a custodian to make sure you get fair value if they do want to liquidate it, So we're unusual in that way that we will take for time, whether it's selling an ounce or 4.5 tons. We will take the time to make sure you get the most suitable product in the most suitable form.
Great. Well, you can see.
Also,
go ahead. Yeah.
Crystalline osmium. So 2026,
Yeah.
This is the year end of production. At the end of this year, the Osmium Institute, who cut and certify all of the crystalline osmium produced in Switzerland, they're ceasing production. So we're already running out of certain grades and certain pieces. So this is an interesting time to have a look at crystalline osmium. Don't put a lot of your portfolio, but I think because it's so beautiful, so rare, and so wearable and so enjoyable, a fraction of a percent of one's portfolio, you're going to be pleased with the result. No, it's not liquid like silver. But unfortunately, in the current system, silver has not proved very liquid, with some of the big companies offering stupid spreads, selling for $8 over, buying back at $10 under. Silver has not proved very liquid, not as a cost effective. I mean, we help our clients get a much narrower spread than that. So that's another thing we specialize in. We've built up great relationship with the largest wholesalers. So we have an out to liquidate if we need to lay off. Somebody brings in, or a family office brings in a huge amount. We can get them a good price. I don't know why the rest of the industry doesn't do it, because it's a trade, and every trade, even if you make a tiny percentage on it, it's a trade. I don't know if they've just got lazy or whether their businesses are in distress, so they have to make a larger and larger spread to pay for their overheads. Maybe it's a bit of both. So yeah, we specialize in being very personable and approach the business. Most of our clients turn into a friend. A few turn into enemies. They do the dirty. They order stuff and then disappear and don't pay for it. They're not our friends anymore. But with what's coming, you want your dealer to be your friend. You want a face, you want a phone call, you want somebody that you're going to be able to talk to. You go to a big company, that person you last dealt with, they were probably a salesman on commission. They're not interested in you anymore, unless you're buying some more.
Yeah. And I consistently get great feedback in the comment section about dealing with yourself and ARC. So definitely, guys, reach out to Ian. The number is on your screen right now. You can also reach out by email, ian@arcsgo.com. That is also on your screen. I was wondering, do you ship to customers outside the United States? Do you deal with Canada at all, or
Yes.
any other countries, or is it only US?
Yeah, we have shipped to Canada. We ship to Australia. We ship to Germany. We do have some UK clients. So yeah, we are probably going to open up in the UK as well.
Oh, nice.
Some of the spreads in the US are huge. You look at some of the big names, how much they're charging for a Silver Eagle is double the premium that we charge. But in the UK, it's even worse. There's even less competition. It's a smaller market. So we're seriously thinking about branching out, opening up an outlet in the UK. But yes, we will ship anywhere. I mean, we would prefer the client to do the research, or what are the implications? How could it get held up at customs? Canada generally has been okay. Large amounts can get tricky because there has been a lot of theft in transit. So some companies have blacklisted regions in Canada, but there are certain regions that have been fine. And if it's a small order, 50, 100 ounces, we've found that USPS, and it transfers over to the Canadian Post Office. We've had zero issues so far shipping to Canada that way.
Great. Well, once again, numbers on the bottom of your screen, guys. Reach out to Ian today. Ian, thank you so much for coming on the show. Great conversation once again.
Thank you, Jesse.
Commodity Culture is a series on commodities and natural resources. If you would like to see more, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you're always up to date with the latest episodes.